welcome to the podcast. We're so excited today. We are talking about one of my all-time favorite movies, one of my favorite Disney films. This is Talking Disney, and the random number generator was very kind to us this month after
Yes, indeed.
having the Black Cauldron last month. We are talking about the 30th animated classic from Walt Disney Animated Studios, Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, excellent.
So Stanford, thank you so much for
Hi.
joining us to talk about this. This is so fun.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Rachel. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. I'm with you. This is one of my all-time favorites from Walt Disney Animation Studios too. I just absolutely love this film.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I go back and forth. Sometimes on my rankings, I have it at number 1, and sometimes I have Little Mermaid at number 1. I think that Beauty and the Beast is probably the slightly better made film, but the Little Mermaid has more nostalgia for me. It was very, very influential in my childhood.
Yeah.
And so I go back and forth, but I love them both so much.
Yes. I hear you. They're both so good.
Mm-hmm.
I typically have Beauty and the Beast as my number 1 too.
Yeah.
So
it's so good.
It's so good.
And as the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars.
I know, which was so cool.
It's only
when that happened.
It's only happened 3 times, and it happened when there was only 5 nominees, so it was even more special than when it happened with Up and Toy Story 3. And it is just such a special, lovely movie. And we'll talk about some of the things that maybe people take issue with, and maybe our response. We're going to go through it, but yeah, I remember vividly. I remember going to see it at the Villa Theater.
Yes,
in Salt Lake City.
Yes,
and where
the greatest.
They sell rugs now, which is so sad.
Every time I drive past it, I get so depressed. Like, bring back the Villa. That was like my favorite theater as a kid. I love that. Yeah,
and it has a balcony, and if I was rich, I would restore the Villa.
I know.
That's what I would do.
Me too.
So,
seriously.
If anybody wants to support the podcast,
that's right.
then Stanford and I can go
help us. And we'll be showing a lot of Disney movies on the big screen.
That would be so amazing. But I vividly remember it. I remember going. I remember just being enchanted, loving it. And, I was 10 when it came out. So that's a very impressionable
Oh,
age.
Absolutely. It's the perfect age to go see, this wonderful movie.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast were kind of my introduction to music. Like, as far as the first music that I ever really fell in love with, knew every song, knew every line, and the way that it's certainly Beauty and the Beast was certainly one of my introductions to musical theater for sure.
Oh, right. Exactly. I mean, because they are Broadway shows, animated Broadway shows is what they are.
And I think it is a really, really special movie. And I think it holds up really well. And
I do too.
We're not going to talk about it too much, but when they did the remake, one of the things that bummed me out a lot was that I felt like the people making it kept talking about all these ways that they were modernizing it and making it better. And this was a whole new Beauty and the Beast. And I'm thinking, why do we need that? It was already modern. It was already like Belle was the most modern of all of with the exception of maybe Mulan, was the most modern of all of the princesses. And yet she's not good enough, evidently, for it made me so mad. And all the changes they made, I hated. And it was very frustrating to me to see it kind of, I don't know, just dragged through the mud is how I felt. And it felt sort of, people were like, oh, my childhood. I wasn't like that, but it just in the sense of something that was very special to me that I felt like was just being constantly criticized by people that I felt like should know better. And at least it seems like with this new Lion King, I read a whole article where Jon Favreau was just nothing but praise. There was no talk about we're modernizing it, we're updating it, we're making it better, all that kind of stuff. And so it was hard. It was a hard experience for me.
Yeah, I didn't like the live action remake.
Yeah.
Live action in quotation marks.
Right.
But I call it the live action and photorealistic CGI remakes. But for many of the same reasons, have you seen the stage version of this?
I have. Yeah, and the Broadway version is very special to me as well, because when I was 20, I went on a very special trip with my grandma and my cousin, and to New York City, and we saw while we were there.
Cool.
Yeah, while we were there, we saw the Rockettes. Because
at Radio City Music Hall.
My grandma loves the Rockettes, and that's the whole reason we were able to go. Is we were like, Grandma, we could go see the Rockettes. She's like, oh, okay. And so we saw the Rockettes, and then we saw Music Man, which was amazing.
Oh wow!
I know. And then we saw Beauty and the Beast, and so it was really special to me because my cousin actually passed away the next April, kind of suddenly, and so it has a very special place in my heart.
Yeah.
And plus my sister, both of my sisters were in stagings of Beauty and the Beast, and so I do love the Broadway musical, but I feel like I don't know, it's just so hard for me to separate myself from all of the publicity of the live action remake, and the way I felt like it was just constantly critiquing what I loved, and that was really hard for me.
Yeah, that was really frustrating to me too. I enjoyed the Broadway production too. I think they did a nice job. I felt a lot of times, and I don't mean any disrespect to the Broadway version, but as I was watching because I think the Broadway version is better, but as I was watching that live action version of Beauty and the Beast, I felt like I was watching kind of like a filmed version, of
with not as good singers.
But I was just gonna say, it's just not as good.
It felt like with changes that were so frustrating. But I literally have a video. I'll put a link down in the description. I have a video on my channel I call it my super nitpicky look at the 2017, and it's 50 minutes long. Where I just talk all the things that drove me crazy in it. But anyway, so and all of it could have been saved if I had felt like the singing was good. And that's the thing about the Broadway musical. Obviously, the singing is good. They're Broadway professionals, but I just felt like the singing was not good.
The singing was terrible, and some of the scenes, like the Be Our Guest scene, it was horrible, I thought. And great, again, how can you beat the Be Our Guest scene from from the 1991 animated one?
Flat.
It's
flat.
It just didn't have. I mean, they were trying to make it colorful and fun, but it was nothing. And then you watch this one, like we just did, and you just have got the biggest smile on your face, and it's just like the most charming, wonderful thing, Yeah.
Well, one thing that's interesting about this animated film is that it was made in a very quick amount of time.
Yeah.
They started on the just the scripts and the other things like that. The initial storyboards were in 1989, but then and then it was released in 1991. So they made from the very beginning all the way until release date in like 2 years. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they were going like crazy. I've got this book that I love. It's called Tale as Old as Time: The Art and Making of Beauty and the Beast by Charles Solomon. And it's got a lot of interesting history about the making of the film, and then of course just a lot of this art, which is just kind of to die for. But the film, as any animated project, or really any film, went through iterations, and it has these interesting pictures of their initial take on the story, given that it's a French fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
That they had set it in 15th century France. And I don't know if you've seen any of this concept art, but it's kind of hilarious to see, Gaston with his powdered wig and
Oh yeah,
you know,
that's interesting.
and just some different takes on that, how they did it. And I just think that was it fell flat. They just couldn't get it to really work,
Mm-hmm.
So they brought in some new directors for a new interpretation of it then.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, I think the reason why I think this movie proved to be so special was because of a tragedy, a sadness, because Howard Ashman,
Yeah.
the lyricist, he found out that he had AIDS, and he had limited time left, because that was the period that it was at in the late 80s, early 90s. And they actually moved the production of the movie up to a residence inn in New York so that he could work on the movie in his last days. And he died 6 months before it came out. And at least for me, if I knew that somebody I loved, somebody I worked with, somebody I collaborated with was giving up that kind of precious time of their last, to make something special, I would want to do my best work. I would want to make it really special. And so I think that's part of the reason why it is so special, is just because it was kind of consecrated in a certain way, because
agreed.
of that sacrifice that he gave. And it just has this special power, I think, to it when you think about it from that lens of this person literally sacrificing their life for art. It's beautiful.
It is. I totally agree. Howard Ashman was so talented, and he and Alan Menken were such a wonderful team. The stuff that they made is really, it's kind of miraculous. I think, and really, really magical. In the best sense of the word. And I agree with you. That it really had to have made an impact on the team.
Mm-hmm.
For what they were creating.
They dedicated, which I can't think of very many Disney films that have
they have a dedication.
And they said at the end, "To our friend Howard, who gave a mermaid her voice and a beast his soul, we'll be forever grateful."
Yeah.
So it's so sweet. And he was incredible. He, in Little Mermaid, he was given a story credit, which is uncommon for a lyricist to get a story credit.
Yes.
He was famous for dressing up as the characters, to give the animators inspiration. And he's just an incredible person. And I would love for Disney to do a Saving Mr. Banks style biopic on Howard Ashman. I think it would be really inspirational and really lovely. And I think would, and plus the fact Michael Fassbender looks exactly like him. He really does. The window's closing because he's getting too old, but he's looks aging, so much like Howard Ashman that it would be perfect.
Do it now. Do it now, people.
Yeah. Anyway, but it was just a really special production, and I don't think that you really see any kind of rushed feel to it, at least to my eyes. And they were definitely working with some newer technology. They had used the caps and the computer animation for Rescuers Down Under, and then they were using it for particularly the ballroom scene, especially here. And I think it still holds up. I think it still looks great.
Oh, I think it looks wonderful too. I agree. I think that the animation, just the artistry of it is so top notch. Yeah.
And so it starts out with the stained glass, and I love that stained glass.
I was just gonna say that is just one of my favorite openings of any film. It's because it's so beautiful. It's so artistic. It's such a great way to illustrate this opening. This introduction.
It really felt very nostalgic to our opening books in there. Our original fairy tales. You had David Ogden Stiers, who voices Cogsworth, doing the narrator, and that just was
so
really,
good.
yeah,
He
so
just
good.
adds so much life to
Mm-hmm.
his narration. I really paid attention, even more so
Yeah.
this time, and just was so impressed with his performance, his vocal performance.
Have you ever been in Disney World to the Be Our Guest?
I have,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
I heard that's really
It's
cool.
so fun. You'd absolutely love it.
Yeah.
They have, this whole Beauty and the Beast area. So the BR Guest restaurant is super fun. But also they have, they have Gaston's Tavern. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not a particularly an on model recreation of the one you see in the film. But you get the idea, and they've got, of course, antlers everywhere and stuff. But they've got this Beauty and the Beast soundtrack. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's music from
But
the
the Beauty and the
film.
Beast, they like recreate the castle basically when you're in there, right? Like it's like a
Yeah, you go into the castle for the Be Our Guest.
Be Our Guest. That's what I meant.
Yeah, the Be Our Guest restaurant. You're in the ballroom,
Mm-hmm.
and then they also have a West Wing room,
Mm-hmm.
and then this other room. I can't remember what they call it. It's not in the movie, but they still just have all this incredible art on the walls of what it's. They have all these paintings of Belle and Beast, as if kind of like during that Something There song.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an expansion of that.
That's
Kind
so
of as they
cool.
were getting to know each other.
And I
And
think
again, it's just like, can I just like stay in this room, or like,
yeah.
for
And
the day?
I think it's the only place where you can see the Beast. You can meet the Beast at Disney World. I think.
Yeah, you can meet. Yeah, that's probably true because
Yeah.
they have this library that you can go get your picture with the Beast. Yeah, I don't know if Belle might be in there sometimes. I'm not sure, but there's this story time with Belle attraction where you actually go into her cottage too in the area. It's for Beauty and the Beast fans. It's just it's Nirvana. I seriously, even just that Gaston's Tavern. That's just a little quick service place where you can get a drink and a treat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they've got these places you can sit, and I just want to sit there and listen to the Beauty and the Beast music. This orchestral score that they've recorded just for the area, just for the land.
Yeah.
And it's so great.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm such a Beauty and the Beast junkie.
So after our stained glass, we get introduced to Belle, and we have the Belle number, and it's little town, it's a quiet village, and that is such like a great way to introduce children to musical theater.
Absolutely.
The tone and the style and everything like that, and Paige O'Hara is just phenomenal.
Isn't she the best?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had picked her because they wanted somebody who sounded more like a woman than a little girl.
Yes.
And so you have that, and it is true. And I didn't really notice this ever until talking about the whole live action thing. She is kind of judgy, Belle, of all of these people, like, because people are so hard on Ariel. The Ariel's like so difficult and whatever, but it is true that she's kind of like the poor provincial town, like there goes the baker with his tray, like, and but they're also being pretty judgy of her, so it goes both ways too,
right.
but but it's so great because you get so much exposition in this opening number, and you get to meet of course you get to meet Belle, and you're going to meet Gaston in this opening number, and he's so great. I love the character of Gaston, and I love Richard White's performance as Gaston. I think he's so brilliant.
He's brilliant. He's so good. He's so perfect, in that role. I just again, one of those things is perfectly animated character with the right voice to match. Yeah.
The whole idea of Gaston is that he is the town hero. He lets one person not liking him just get at him until it turns him into a monster.
Yeah.
And that it can be very, like, I don't know if you've ever experienced that you just like you don't understand like why somebody doesn't like you or doesn't want to be your friend or whatever. And I can remember particularly in high school that kind of an experience. You're like, why don't you like me?
Yeah.
But sometimes you just don't. And but
Yeah.
he's so cocky. He's so and the only reason that he wants to be with Belle is because she's pretty. He doesn't value anything else about her.
Yeah.
It's not right for women to be getting ideas. And
Right.
You are positively primeval. Thank you, Belle. And the script for this movie was the first draft was done by Linda Wolverton, and she's not my favorite person in the world. But this was definitely her shining hour for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's a lovely person, but her work is not my favorite. But in this is definitely her shining hour, and she did a really funny. She did a good job bringing like humor and heart to.
Yeah. It's a really solid script, I think.
Is, yeah.
And
it is.
It really, helps. The character building, I think, is so good, and yeah, there's so much, and I just like the plot too. I think it's got a really good plot from a story that I think a lot of us are familiar with. Yeah, that it's really a clever interpretation.
Yeah,
of it.
Because a lot of us, we just assume that household objects has always been a part of the story, but that's not the case.
That's not the case
at all.
And they were such a delightful addition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what really made it Disney in a lot of ways too, where the way that the household objects were done.
Yeah.
But made it fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you have, of course, the Foo there.
Foo. Yeah.
I think that I've written down Jesse Cordy is his name, the voice actor.
Yes.
He doesn't get as much credit as he deserves because he actually sings the Gaston song. I mean, he does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, he does.
He does a great job. Did a wonderful job. And then, you have Maurice. And I like it much better having him be the inventor rather than Belle be the inventor.
Yes.
It's just, I don't know. I just like it better.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. And so they have a really fun chemistry, and he's going off to take his invention to the town fair or whatever. And I love when he's going into the forest and just the immediate change in atmosphere and tone. And
I know.
You get to see one of the hidden Disney owls in that scene, which is fun.
Yeah.
Because for a long time there was an owl in like every Disney movie. They haven't done it since for quite a while, but for a long time it was sort of a fun thing. And it's just really a great sequence with the wolves and the bats and the owl, and you have the I forget the name of the horse.
Philippe.
Philippe, that's right, Philippe.
Yes.
And he ends up at the castle, and of course Lumiere lets him in. And you get that delightful opening scene, which is just so it's so good. And they're just trying to be nice, and they get him some tea, and you have Chip.
And Cogsworth is just freaking out.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. I love that about his character. And again, another just a brilliant acting job by David Ogden Stiers.
Yeah. And Jerry Orbach. I mean, I remember watching him on Law and Order and being like, how is this the same person?
I know, right?
As Lumiere. It was incredible.
Yeah. It's really incredible. I mean, he was a Broadway star for many years. And
it's true.
And yeah, I'm with you. I think we would all know him from Law and Order, but I remember doing some more research when, back in the day when the film came out, or just reading about Jerry Orbach, and or talking to, my mom about him. And just like, oh yeah, he was in all these Broadway shows, and just super talented. He's brilliant.
Yeah, that's right. Cause he was the original in the Fantastics.
Yes.
I'll try to remember.
Yeah.
I love that. And so it's it's really good, and the score, the Macon score in this is just so great. It just such atmosphere, such mood for every scene. It just draws you in. Does such a great job with that.
Alan Menken. I mean, what can you say? You know, he's just so amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, and all the other voice work. I mean, Angela Lansbury practically.
I mean, exactly.
She practically became every person's grandma. And I remember when she sang with the Tabernacle Choir. This was years ago.
Yeah.
I never get into the Christmas concert, but I've gotten into like 2 of them, 3 of them. Anyway, I was there for her. And
wow.
I know. And she said that she felt like in 9/11 that she had sort of the people needed to hear her voice, and that people got comfort from hearing her voice because of Beauty and the Beast. And yeah, and so she sang, Beauty and the Beast at the concert, and then she felt like that was something little that she could do to help people. There was something along those lines. I was like, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's just such a comforting.
It is. And her interpretation.
Yeah.
Is so comforting. Because again, sorry to even bring it up, but the live action one. I mean, Emma Thompson's British and Angela Lansbury's British, and that's about what they have in common.
Yeah.
Because they're both British actresses.
Yeah.
And I like Emma Thompson. Don't get me wrong. I think. But it just didn't cut it. It's like, this is again, and I don't think she was trying to copy Angela Lansbury, but it just wasn't even close. As far as just the feeling you get, you get from hearing the song as interpreted by Angela Lansbury.
I didn't like the design of the teapot either.
I didn't either.
With the face on the side.
Yeah,
as opposed
I didn't care.
To spigot being her nose. It looked so much. It just looked so flat.
Yeah, agreed.
It wasn't good. But anyway, yeah. So all the voice work was phenomenal, incredible, and so then you get Gaston's wedding that he puts up there, and he's gonna go, and he's gonna ask Belle to marry, and then they're gonna get married right then and there. I love it. So funny. And of course you have the triplets that are crying and everything.
Yeah, those triplet girls that just are so in love with them. Yeah.
But I love when Belle says to him, "What do you know about my dreams?" I think that's a really good line, and this is strapping boys like me.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he's just so clueless about what she wants and who she is. He has no idea. And then we get the Belle reprise, which is just one of the best I Want moments.
It is, and it's so beautifully done. I had heard that the animators were paying an homage to the opening of the Sound of Music film with that scene.
That makes sense.
Which totally makes sense, but it's so beautiful. The way that they draw Belle in the incredible sky and all, she's just like in this gorgeous painting is what what it looks like, It's so great. I'm with you. It's a really great moment.
So here's a question. So she sings, she says, "I want adventure in the great wide somewhere." Now, does she get what she wants in the end? Because she does she ends up as a prisoner, first of all, but then she ends up just kind of getting married and living in the castle. Like, is that adventure enough for our heroine, you think?
Well, Paul, you bring up a good point. I think in this case, maybe, I think it maybe is because, she's not necessarily traveling the world, but I like that lyric in that it shows that she, again, that and we learned that about her in the original, that she wants much more than this provincial life, line that keeps getting repeated in that opening song, in the Belle song. But I think a character who wasn't willing to put herself out there in that way would not have done what she did. Although it's complicated too because she's saving her father.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps in the Broadway musical that she has She has that song Home,
Yes.
which is such a good way of kind of getting into her heart and where she's at. And I
Yeah, it's
love
a
that
really
song.
great song.
Amazing song. And so yeah, so she ends up finding Philippe there after she sings the song. She goes and she finds her father there trapped, and she makes a promise. This one other thing I didn't like in the new version was that she doesn't give the beast her word. From the very beginning she's planning on leaving, whereas I think this is so much more powerful because she
Yeah,
willingly gives up her agency for her father.
for her
And
dad. Yeah,
she says, "You have my word." And so that's why I think that the people who cry Stockholm syndrome about this movie, I don't think they have much of a leg to stand on, because she has willingly given up her agency. She's not been kidnapped.
right.
She and she literally leaves. I mean, they do kind of cram it in to one day, but she leaves and she has the ability to leave at any time, but she's given her word that she would stay. And
Yeah,
so I think that that's a completely different thing of somebody who is kidnapped and
yeah,
then emotionally manipulated to fall in love with their kidnappers.
yeah. I don't buy the Stockholm syndrome stuff either with this. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, yeah, we have the beast and Belle, and he wants her to come down to dinner. And I just love Robbie Benson is so great. He's actually in a Hallmark movie this weekend, which is
Oh,
really
is
funny.
he?
And I was joking
Oh.
with my friends, he better not have to go ahead and star. And the poor guy, he probably he was just taking a fun little animated film thing, and he didn't know it would be his iconic
Right.
role.
Exactly.
And I remember him at Comic-Con, him telling some story to the effect of that he was getting frustrated with one of his kids or something like that, and at the grocery store because they were taking stuff off the cashier or whatever, and he was like, "Stop it!" and everybody was like, well, "What?" Like, it was that such a memorable voice.
He went into his beast voice.
Which is hilarious. And he does a great job. I love him in this.
Yeah, Robbie Benson gives such an outstanding performance, and I think in so many ways it was such an unlikely, like you wouldn't having seen him in other films like Ice Castles or something,
Right.
you just wouldn't expect him. I think that was probably some of the joy that the producers got about, or the directors got in casting him too. He's just terrific. A really multi-layered performance, really good, really, really good.
Yeah. And so, yeah, if she doesn't eat with me, then she doesn't eat at all. So good. And then we get going back to the town. We get the Gaston number, and that is just so fun. I remember the
hilarious.
first time I heard it, I was laughing my head off.
Yeah.
So funny.
So clever.
Yeah. And he's everyone's favorite guy. He's the town hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what makes him an interesting villain to me.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody's on board, but he's such a jerk, I mean, he's just punching everybody out and being, just being a bully, basically. But they all love him. Okay, whatever. Like, no wonder Belle wants out of this town.
Yeah. And it was just such a great, incredible Howard Ashman, incredible lyrics. I just love.
So funny. We all learned what the word expectorating, means to expectorate.
Yeah. 5 dozen eggs every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
The size of a barge.
Yeah. And then Maurice comes running in saying about Belle and the beast and whatever. And then he's kicked out, and crazy old Maurice. He's always good for a laugh. And that's when he gets the idea of that he's going to try to force Belle to marry him, which is just like insane. Why would you want to be married to somebody that hates you? Like, it's so ridiculous.
He just is. Yeah, he's so.
Worst. It would be the worst life ever to be married to somebody who hated you. Like,
Yeah. Well,
so
he's
funny.
so cool. He's so clueless.
Yeah. And so then we come back and we have I do love the little moment between Beast and Mrs. Potts, and where she says, you must get her to see past all that. And he says that you know, they tell him you must control your temper. That's really great.
Yeah.
And I do feel like it is very unlikely that she would be sneaking around on day one. That she would be going all around the castle and everything. I mean, I probably wouldn't, but whatever.
Yeah.
They do have to kind of condense it.
Right. They have to keep the story moving.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so she comes down and that's when Cogsworth is like, crust of bread, crust of milk.
Right.
Cogsworth, I'm surprised at you. So good. And then they have Be Our Guest, which is so great.
Yeah, it is. It's just one of the all-time great musical numbers in any film, let alone an animated film. And it's just so delightful. Yeah. So funny. All these fun homages to classic Hollywood musicals, but also just its own thing too.
Yeah, like you obviously have to suspend your disbelief, because if every single one of those spoons and those things that are moving, if those are all people, then this staff is
there are a lot of people working at that castle.
Yeah, my goodness. But it's great. Of course, they have the gray stuff. It's delicious, and she almost eats nothing, which is kind of funny. There's all this food, and she just a couple fingers of food, and of course, you've had the gray stuff at Disneyland, and
it is delicious.
It is, basically cookies and cream.
Yeah,
kind of.
But it's such a clever. I'm so glad that the culinary team, at Disney parks, went with it. It's fun, fun.
And I don't think that she would go on the West Wing on the first day. Like, that is really pushing it. Whoa. But anyway, she does. And and she touches the rose, and so the Beast freaks out. You realize what you could have done?
Yeah, he flips out.
Yeah. And so he's very upset, and she runs away. Promise or no promise, I can't stay here another minute. Yeah. So she had her agency from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So, and then I love the animation in the wolf sequence. Like, it's so good.
It's exciting. You know, I mean, it's I like it too, because again, it's she's in peril, and it's scary, and the Alan Menken score really heightens it, and you just think, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then the beast shows up, and it's anyway, really great.
So good. And then they have the great scene where I think you really see that these two people are meant for each other. She's treating his wounds, and I just love their back and forth. If you hadn't been in the West Wing, I wouldn't have got upset. Well, if you had, if you should learn to control your temper. And the back and forth is really wonderful, I think, between them, and they do a great job. Robbie Benson and Paige O'Hara.
Yeah.
And so that's really lovely. And then we get a little scene with Gaston and the asylum head, who I love the character design on him. He looks so good.
So good.
Yeah.
So creepy.
And the voice. I don't know who the voice was, but he's really
good. It's that Tony, I'm trying to remember his last name. He was the voice of Judge Frollo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Tony J. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize he did that one.
Yeah. He was also the voice of Shere Khan in Tailspin. Remember that, the animated series? Yeah.
Series. Yeah, that's really interesting. So
he's really a good, what a good voice actor he is.
yeah. So then we get something there sequence, and the
Which is I love.
the timeline is really messed up. I mean, it is true because it's like,
Yeah.
how long is Maurice in the forest for? Because there's this whole something there, and is he in the? It seems like that's many months,
Right, because it's winter.
yeah. So it's kind of confusing. But then when you're with Maurice, it seems like, oh, it's only been a couple of days.
Yeah, that it's just been a couple of days. That's hard to tell, or maybe it was just like an early snowstorm, that dumped a whole bunch of snow.
Yes, yeah. And so I mean, he's pretty. I guess he can handle being outside for all that time. I don't know. It's a little messy, but who cares? And
Yeah.
and so you do get the library scene, which I absolutely love.
Oh, it's not the coolest.
Because it's such a great example of the fact that the Beast is paying attention to her and really wanting to get her something that she would love. And this library, it kind of cracks me up. Like, how could you even access any of these books?
Oh, I know.
They're way
too high. This library, what is it, like 10 stories tall, or something, 7 stories tall, and you need like the world's biggest ladder to get up to. Yeah.
But I still love it.
It's so fun. Good. I know, it's so good. And just like it's a little slice of heaven for Belle.
Yeah.
Because as you said, he knows what she's.
Yeah. Well, and I even really love the little scenes where they're eating and she, picks up her bowl. I don't know, really coming to understand each other. It's
really effective. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good, really good storytelling.
Yeah. And it all sort of leads up to our ballroom scene, which when of course, you have the Beast getting ready, and then you have them going down the stairs, her in her iconic yellow dress, him in his blue kind of suit sort of thing. And then you get Beauty and the Beast, Angela Lansbury. It's perfect.
Yeah, that whole scene.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
And the way just the music just flows with them dancing. I catch my breath. I watch it.
I know. And I love the animation on particularly of the Beast, how when Belle kind of snuggles up to him as they're dancing.
Yeah.
And he's so surprised and he's so happy. He flashes that big smile to Cogsworth and Lumiere. It's so good. It's so great.
Yeah. And then we have her going and sitting with the Beast and him asking, are you happy here? And she wants to see her father. She sees that he's in the forest and needs help. And so she goes and he tells the household objects that he's let her go.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Potts says he's finally learned to love. And so it's really good.
It's really, that's really a poignant part. And a really cool way, I think, to illustrate or, to have Beast's character get to that point. Because that's such an interesting character arc for him. I also, I quite like the magic mirror. I just think I thought that was, again, and I don't know if that's all Linda Wolverton or however she.
It was way better than that book. And the remake, I hated that book so much.
Oh, it was horrible. Like, are you kidding me?
No, I love the animation, that like neon green of it. It looked really good.
It looks good, and I thought it was a cool storytelling device. Where how they used it, and both with the Beast, and then later with Belle.
Yeah,
how she's able to use it.
And so then she ends up going and we get the mob song with Gaston riling them all up, and this is just such an incredible song. Richard White's incredible vocals, and just the way that they use light in that sequence I think is so brilliant.
I thought so too.
And just building and building and building and building it up, the harmonies, it's so good. And you got the classic line of he's no monster, Gaston, you are. And that's the, I think one of the most iconic lines of the whole movie for sure.
Definitely.
Monster Gaston. And then we get our battle at the castle, which is very all of a sudden very kind of Looney Tunes and slapsticky, which is a little weird, but it's sort of fun.
But it's a fun little diversion, and I think it helps with the pacing of it because
Yeah.
I mean, not that anything's been super heavy, but it's been a little serious.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to have a bit of a breather before you get into that final battle, which is super intense.
Right. But you do get the trunk that eats the man. So, like, what happens to him?
Yeah.
Does that, when he gets turned back into a human,
right.
He's
What happens? Yeah, it's true.
So anyway, and then the whole final confrontation between Beast and Gaston is so great because he's just completely just given up, basically, the Beast has. And I just love, like, it's sad, but I love the way they captured that in the vocal performance, in the just he's like slumped over, and the way Gaston can kind of just push him all around. And I think that again, Richard Wright is so brilliant when he's like, were you in love with her, Beast? Like, that is so great. It's so good. Did you honestly think that she'd want you? She'd have someone like me. I love it. And I love when the Beast sees Belle.
I know.
Just his
face.
His whole countenance, his whole face. It's really, really beautiful. And then when he has the chance to kill Gaston, and of course Gaston turns into a baby. Don't hurt me.
Right. Which is, again, quintessential for what we'd expect from someone like Gaston, you know.
And then he sees Belle. He goes up, onto the kind of the balcony, and then Gaston knifes him in the back, and then Gaston falls to his death, which is it's a pretty dramatic death.
It's a really dramatic death. Yeah. They show quite a lot of his fall, you know, and it's very dramatic, but strangely kind of satisfying. You know,
it is.
I mean, morbid but satisfying, because he's such a horrible person.
Yeah.
And
I just love when the Beast says, "At least I got to see you."
I know. It's just devastating. The biggest ball fest.
And the last petal falls, and she says, "I love you." And that's when we get our magic. And what do you think of Human Beast? I guess it's Prince Adam, I think is his name.
Well, I guess as fans have named him. I'm not sure if that's quote unquote canon, you know. But you know, I guess I'm not necessarily the one to ask. Other women that I've talked to haven't really been that impressed with how he looked. What's your take on it?
It's hard because I think whoever they got, it's just whoever they did. It's just that's not the character that we've come to know and love.
Yeah.
So it's just so hard. But I don't know. He's kind of a little Fabio light, kind of. I feel like he's not my favorite. But
I forget Adam. It's called Fabio.
It's a lose situation. You're not going to win with this, but luckily we only see him very briefly.
It's so brief. Yeah, and they still capture, and you know, as Belle, it's his eyes.
Yeah. It is you.
That Belle really recognizes him, and I think that's what they were able to keep.
And then they have sort of Lumiere and Cogsworth that are bickering back and forth, and it's totally Lumiere who said that she's come to break the spell. It's not Cogsworth.
Yeah.
and you get
so cute. You get everybody.
Yeah, is that their wedding at the end, or is it just a party of some kind? Do we know?
I don't think we know.
Yeah.
Because she's back in the yellow dress.
Is she? Okay, that's right.
And it's hard to know. And a little bit of trivia, you know how they're waltzing?
Yeah.
They used, I think because I had heard because they were short on time.
Mm-hmm. They used Sleeping Beauty.
They used Sleeping Beauty. Yeah. And I mean, it's pretty obvious to anybody who's familiar with the film. But that cracks me up, you know?
Yeah, and I had a big battle with someone on Twitter this last week about that. That people thought that was like some like an affront or whatever. And I just don't. I don't.
They use it. They did it all the time.
You use the tools that you have to make.
Yeah.
I think it's really weird that people make
Wow.
such a big deal of that.
I
But
do too.
anyway, so that's the movie. It's so lovely. I absolutely adore it, and I just think it nailed every part of it. I think it has a lovely message about loving the inside and not loving the heart, person for their heart,
Yeah.
not for the outer appearance. And the beauty is found within. And so that's, I
Yes.
think, the lovely message about it. And that and it's just a great fairy tale with incredible music and incredible animation. And I just love it. It's one of my favorite movies for sure.
Me too. It's such a satisfying movie. You know, you just it's such a pleasure to watch. There's so, you know, there's the comedy and then the action and the drama and the incredible music and such a wonderful conclusion. I'm with you. It's wonderful, and it's still at the top of my list of favorite films from Disney animation.
Yeah. Real quick, I just wanted to read the various responses we got on Twitter.
Yes.
About Beauty and the Beast, because of course we had many people that wanted to share their thoughts on this film. Potterhead7, she says it's my favorite animated film. We have Alexander Klepp. He says absolutely deserves every amount of praise it gets. Its music is magical. Its animation is beautiful. Its characters are fantastic and so well written, and the ending still makes me teary-eyed. Hands down, in my opinion, the best ending of any Disney film ever. An absolute masterpiece. Dragon Reviews, she says, it's honestly a film that encapsulates what is right about Disney all in one film. Wonderful animation, touching characters, and astonishing music. There's few films that reach this one. It's my absolute favorite. LC Screen Deck says, amazing, beautiful, stunning, wonderful, best animated film ever.
Have fun. All these people are loving this movie. Yeah.
The Love Pirate, he says, have to say pretty great and not in any way hurt by the remake, which is also pretty great. So there you go.
Yeah.
In his opinion. So we have, let me see if I can find somebody that's this Monjour, he says, I can see why it has such high praise for it's a really good film. However, I do feel it's kind of overrated, especially to later films in the Renaissance like Hunchback and Mulan. And then we have Loud Cartoonist. He says, while there are much better Disney movies, Beauty and the Beast is probably the best film to recommend to those wanting to get into Disney animated canon, since it's everything that Disney is known for. Stunning animation, charming characters, a simple yet engaging story, and fantastic songs. Highly recommend to anyone. And we have Cartoonico. He says the animation, storybook aesthetic, characters, songs, and atmosphere make it one of Disney's greatest films till this day. And then Eric Faulkner, he says, it is a movie I feel Walt himself would have enjoyed. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the crowd likes it.
Yes, definitely.
So, there we go. Okay, we did it. Right, well, we can do our random number here.
It's time. Well, you know, the number generator was so kind to us, you know, this last time. We'll see what's in store.
Let's see, 47. What's that? The Robinsons.
Oh, it is Meet the Robinsons. Okay, I was one off.
I think it's a little underrated, so I'm excited to talk about it.
You know what? There's a lot that I like about Meet the Robinsons.
It's not perfect, but I like it.
But
that'll be fun.
Excited to watch it. Yeah.
We just have we're not going to talk. We're going to get like the package films like every month.
At the end.
Wow.
Right, because we haven't had one.
No.
Have we?
We haven't had a single one.
The random number generator is not delivering on the package films.
Have we done any of the we haven't done any of the golden era either.
No, we haven't.
No, it's really funny.
Interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, the earliest one we've done is Cinderella.
Cinderella.
Yeah. So anyway, well, that'll be fun. I'm excited. So next month we will be talking about Meet the Robinsons. So look forward to that.
Oh yes.
And so thank you so much for talking about Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, thank you.
This was a real
so
treat.
fun.
And so where can people find you online?
All right. Well, I'm on Twitter at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie blog and podcast, which is at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, on Rotten Tomatoes, and on iTunes and YouTube. If you're listening on iTunes, if you can give us your ratings and reviews, we really appreciate it. And if you're listening on YouTube, if you can give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It means so much to us. And give us your comments. Let us know what you think about Beauty and the Beast, and if you think it holds up. What are some of your favorite parts about it? We'd love to hear. And so thanks again, and we'll talk again next month.
Hey, great. Thanks. Bye-bye.